Welcome back to another Minetest modding tutorial, and today we are going to be looking at global textures, what they are, and how to use them. So we'll start with what they are, so you know what you're getting into and know if this is something that you're actually interested in. So right up here, I have this wall of nodes, and now the interesting thing about this, as you can notice, I only have one node in my hand. And as I place them, they all have different textures. And now to prove that I'm not doing any kind of sneaky cheating behind the scenes, if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, I don't know if you're actually going to be able to make it out, but you can tell each one of these nodes is in fact the exact same node. And I can dig them. I'm in creative mode, so that's why nothing's showing up in my inventory. But as you all know, if the nodes were different, I would get one of each. That's a sand node, by the way. I'm not sure where I hit that. But so these global textures, instead of being like a normal texture where you define either a single texture for the one face or a texture for every face or whatever combination of that, on a global texture, you define one texture, but it spans multiple nodes. So this texture is actually, and of course I don't have free move on, so I can't really demonstrate it super well. And of course this is also set to the wrong location, but I'll be okay. If we go back here, this is actually the top of the texture. It starts with A, 1 through 4, and then B, C, and D. And it's just a simple textured grid. So how do we create this? Well, let's jump on over into a code editor and take a look. All right, so here we are in Atom, and we can see the node registration for this one node. So the mod's called global, and the texture, or the node itself is called grid. Description, color grid, nothing special there. Tiles, this is the name of the tile, align style world, and scale 4. Those two are very important. Inventory image, we will get to that in a little bit, and group is just your standard group. So if we look at the global grid PNG file, which is this guy right here, we can see this is what our single texture looks like. And if we jump back here, it aligns to world and a scale of 4. So if we go back to this picture, a scale of 4 means this is split into 4 and 4. It needs to be evenly divisible into 16. So you could do a texture that is 16 by 16, 8 by 8, 4 by 4, 2 by 2. I mean, technically you can do one that's not evenly or won't evenly divide 16, but you might get some weird artifacts. So just watch it if you do that. So we can actually change this to scale to 2 and jump back into Minetest. All right, and here we are, and we can see that now we have, instead of the texture spanning 4 nodes, the texture only spans 2 nodes. So we have A1, A2, A3, A4, and then A1, B1, C1, and D1. So these 4 nodes here are using the full texture, and it runs on the sides as well. So that is something to note. And if we went the other direction and changed it to 8, this one texture would be, like this A1 would be on 4 nodes instead of a single one. But I think we get the point. So we'll jump right back into Atom here. And we will take a quick look at this inventory image line. So it looks really confusing. Trust me, it's not. All we're doing is we are telling Minetest to create an inventory cube, because if we don't and we just give it this texture, it'll create a cube that has this image on each side, which we obviously don't want to do. We want a texture that just shows a single one of these squares. Of course, with this example, it's kind of goofy because you don't really get an idea of what your overall texture is if you have just a cube that says B2. But if you had something, say, oh, I don't know, a cobble image, which this is a really bad example. Let's go to this brick example here. You could have just you know, one node worth of brick, and you'd know it's brick. And then as you place it out, you would get these slight variations, like a corner missing there, a cracked brick, some slightly different colors, corner missing here. Thought there was one that had a corner or a chunk missing out of the bottom. There we go, chunk missing out of the bottom, etc., etc. So we're just creating an inventory cube, and then we are, after we do this inventory cube, we are defining the texture, global grid, PNG, and then we are doing this sheet command, which essentially is saying take this image, chop it into 4 by 4, so make a grid of 4 spaces up and down, or I guess up, down, and across, horizontally and vertically would make more sense, and then select the first tile, so the top left-hand corner basically. And then we're just doing the same thing 3 times, because we need to do that once for the top, once for the front face, and once for the side face of the inventory cube. That's all we're doing. So how do we do this if, say, we want to modify an existing node? By which I mean, say we want to make the bricks for Minetest game use that global brick texture that I created. So what we're going to do is going to do Minetest override underscore item, use the right parenthesis, that's always good, default brick. Of course, if you're going to override something, you have to make sure that you are explicitly calling that out in your dependencies, so that file gets loaded first, so you can override it. Because if you try to load this mod before the mod that you're trying to override, you don't have that node available to override, and then when the other mod would run, which it won't because this will crash, it would overwrite the overriding, if that makes any sense at all. Probably doesn't. But all we're doing, because we're doing in, I don't want a plus, I want equals. Because we're doing override item, we only have to define what things we're overriding. So we are just going to override well, it'll be 2 things. We're going to override the tiles, and we're going to override the inventory image, which I think we have to do because I don't believe the brick item gives an inventory image because it just creates it from the tiles. Speaking of which, that should be tiles. All right, let's stop talking and get typing. So name equals, you can do a space, you cannot do a space, it really doesn't make any difference. And then it's called the global, I don't know why it's called stone, it should be brick. So we are going to change that, global brick PNG. And then we want to do align, not a light, align style equals world, just as we have in the above. And scale equals 4. And while I'm at it, let me change this back. So those are our tiles. And then we need to do inventory image. And the inventory image, I am actually going to be lazy and just copy and paste this because this will take a while to type out. And there's really no good reason to, and we're just going to change each of these instances of grid to brick because we're doing the exact same thing. Yeah, let's make that brick instead of BRCK, not brick, and the same thing here. So now we have essentially just done the same thing. I do need to rename this file, otherwise, you know, there won't be a file of that name for Minetest to open. Now let's go ahead and launch Minetest again and see what we get if we give ourselves some bricks. So here we have a brick. Now we didn't override the stairs or the slabs, so we will take a look at the difference here. So here we have some bricks. We see we have the one with the little notch missing out of the middle. I didn't want to put one there, but I suppose that's all right. And we'll do one more row just for lulz. Whoops. All right, so there you can see we have a bit of variation in it. And now if we take the slabs, oh, the slabs won't put out to the face. That's kind of sad. Oh, and they're facing wrong directions. All right, well, I mean, with the exception of the few that are rotated the wrong way, we kind of get the idea here. There we go. So you can see the bricks versus the normal texture, all very similar. They're completely identical, actually. In here, a little bit of variation to spice things up. So we could stop here, but we won't, because we're going to do something even better. We're going to do one more. And this time around, I'm going to show you my preferred method of doing this. So we are going to change the sand, and only because I have a bunch of sand surrounding me, so we'll be able to see the difference right away. So what we're going to do is we are going to open up GIMP. All right, so with GIMP open here, I am going to, if my mouse would move, there we go. Going to create a new image. I can't make this window larger. Okay, and because we're going to do a 4x4, so this should be 64 by 64, because that will allow us to do 4 images tiled across and 4 images tiled up and down. All right, so I've just loaded in the normal sand texture, and what I'm gonna do is duplicate this layer. This is just the easiest way I've found to do this. And actually then we can go ahead and merge down and then duplicate and then merge down again and then duplicate, slide it down, merge down, duplicate. You would think I would know where these options are. Whoops. I want to merge down. All right. Yeah, we can actually delete that. We don't need that. So here is our full sand image. And sometimes I like to go ahead and throw some guides in. This is completely optional. But one thing you want to be sure of when you're doing this is that your edges at the node boundaries are still going to be tileable. So even though this is being spread across 4 nodes, you want this and this, all these seams to still tile with one another, because if you have a corner, you're going to have this on one face and then this on the face adjacent to that face at a 90-degree corner. And so it just looks best if they are still tileable. Now there's a few different ways to do this. You could just paint directly on top of this layer. You could duplicate the layer and paint on top of it, and then if you made a mistake, you could just erase and the original layer would show through. You could always add a blank layer with just a transparency, and you could make your edits on top of the transparency, and then you could always turn it on and off to easily see what changes you have made, what the difference is. You know, it's really very open-ended. Just do whatever works best for you. Like I said, it really doesn't matter what methods you employ. One of the fun things you can do, though, is just use some filters. I don't know if this filter's any good. What does this filter look like? That filter didn't do anything. It's probably because I was on a layer that didn't have anything. Let's try a filter again. What's a slur do? Oh, that looks... Randomization 0 and 100. 100, it looks identical. We can do repeating. Oh, we could make some very interesting textures here. We can change our seeds. Yeah, I really don't like that as a sand, but this is just kind of to give you an idea of what can be done. Oh, that looks really bad. I mean, optimally you would actually just make new textures. Or I shouldn't necessarily say make new textures, but you would modify the existing textures. Now, I think if I use this, I don't know why this layer is called armor, but whatever. I think if I go on to transparent, yeah, and I try to color select, it'll select nothing because there's no color there. So that is one thing to keep in mind if you're going to go that route. Again, it really doesn't make too much of a difference what method you employ. I believe it's... No. O is selector and N is paint, or the pencil. Yes, okay, so we're going to select this lighter color here, and then we're going to select the pencil. And one thing I like to do is drop my opacity down so I can just like lighten up some stuff without just destroying the underlying texture. I will just paint over that. We'll paint over this, paint over this. Let's go in here, paint over this one. Let's go over here, paint over that. And then we'll go ahead and switch to the color selector. And we'll select this darker color. Actually, I need some even darker than that. That might be the darkest. No problemo. I can always just... Oh, and you can't see this. I'm just changing the color, making it a little bit darker. And then we'll switch back to the pencil. And we still have the opacity dropped. So when I draw in a new line, that possibly was darkening a little too much. There we go. We'll just do some little differences. And with the opacity set lower, you can just click multiple times in one space too to create the dark color that you're looking for. So we can make a little trail here. And I mean, if you're going with like a windswept texture, I'm trying to, you know, make the sand kind of look like it would look if the wind was sweeping along. You're probably gonna have lines all going the same way, but I'm no texture professional, so this isn't really so much how to make good textures as how to use this feature. This is gonna look like complete garbage, I am sure, but oh well. Now theoretically, and I'm not actually 100% sure if this is the case, I should be able to get away with this because this would be the bottom if this was the side, and these would both be touching sides theoretically. So I should be able to paint in a texture that spans between two, and it shouldn't be an issue unless it's adjacent to a stair or a slab, in which case we will see a difference. But I think we'll be okay. And you know what? I think just for funsies, I'm gonna get myself a little bit of green in here. That's not really working so well. That does not look good in the slightest. I was thinking I could put like a little bit of green in, but green's not a good choice. Maybe some brown. Let's try a little bit of brown. Just to give some different coloration. Sure, that doesn't look horrible. Of course, I put those almost in the exact same spots because I'm just a genius like that. How about we lighten some stuff up with a few little dots of white. That white was probably a little too intense. I should have dialed it down to just a couple clicks instead of a handful of clicks. Just put some little speckles in here and there. Sure, that's looking all right. Let's go ahead and add some black now, and we'll call it a day with messing with the texture. Obviously, you would end up spending a lot more time than this to make a good texture. Again, though, this isn't really so much about the technique to use to make a good texture. This is just showing how to do it. So what we have now, our original and our modified image. I mean, they're really not that much different. There's just some little minuscule differences here, but it should be enough to look different. So then we're just going to go ahead and save this as, and you can't see any of this, so I will catch you over in our code editor and throw this one together. All right, so we are back in Atom, and the easiest way to do this, of course, is to just copy and paste, and I believe it's just called sand. Pretty sure. And we're going to go ahead and call this sand, and we'll just change these over to sand as well, if you hadn't already guessed. And we will go ahead and save this. You can see here we have the global sand file, and we'll hop over into Minetest and take a little looky-see at what our sand looks like now. All right, so you can tell it has some little speckling going on in it. It actually doesn't look too horrible. I'm kind of surprised. And we will just turn on free move so we can kind of get a view from up in the sky, the eye in the sky, as it were. So there you have it, global textures. Now these only work on full nodes, and I believe on node boxes as well. So actually, let's go ahead and try it out on this slab right here. Okay, so quick little test, and it worked. So here's how we do it. It's the exact same. Literally, it's the exact same. I just copied the brick from here and pasted it here. Just changed the name to stairs slab underscore brick. Added stairs to the dependencies. And that was literally it. So if we hop back over into Minetest and we launch this world up, you will see that these are our slabs. The sides show normal, nothing squished or stretched there. You can see we have a lighter brick here, a darker brick there, a lighter brick here. This one's got that chunk missing out of it. So yeah, you do the exact same thing for node boxes as you do for normal nodes, which makes this extremely easy. You know, it doesn't work for anything outside of these two, but these node boxes and full nodes kind of make up most of the things that you would want to use this for. Like a plant like draw type really wouldn't make sense too much. Maybe there could be some use cases, but I kind of doubt it. And mesh nodes, obviously it wouldn't make sense to use this on at all because they're UV mapped. So things would just get really wonky if you tried doing that. That is it though. Global textures in Minetest, a primer. I guess it's also an advanced and an expert course because I think I covered everything. Of course, you can still use all your texture modifiers as normal on this as well if you wanted. And that is going to wrap this video up. So thanks for watching, and check back again real soon for more videos.